early 2000s, and you're in for music,
Mm-hmm.
falling in love, and you're essentially looking towards your kind of future. You mentioned that it seems like your college years, you spent a lot of time with maybe kind of personal development.
Mm-hmm.
Um, uh, was there any kind of like cool stories or cool interactions that you've had during
Mm.
college? You mentioned earlier that you had some really cool and small group of friends throughout your time.
Yeah.
Anything, any key people in college that you would like to highlight?
Yeah, definitely. There's one lady that was our church. Her name's Felice, and she really became like a, I don't know if you want to, just like a spiritual mentor to me.
Hmm.
And her husband Tim, they really became like our mentors also in the first years of our marriage. And we're both just so grateful for them, and we still keep in contact with them. And yeah, it just really helped me understand just what it means to be a wife, and they had us in their house often for Bible studies, so we got to see them how they were raising their kids and who are now grown and have their families of their own. And yeah, that was really special and really formative for my husband and I.
And you mentioned you have professors who also mentored you as
Hmm.
well. Um, did you? I mean, and especially kind of the music world.
Yeah.
Is that's how you met Felice and Tim, or they?
No, they were through our church.
Okay.
But professors wise, one definitely stands out, and his name was Al Clift.
Mm.
And he passed away, I want to say maybe 6 or 7, 8 years ago, something like that. But he was like a spiritual father
Mm.
on campus, and people knew it. He was the director of University Choir and Orchestra, and that was like the coveted group to belong to. And he just had this way of, like, in the middle of a piece, and if he was just overwhelmed by like worshiping God in that moment, he would just like stop everyone and just have a moment of silence, or say, hey, let's just, does anybody want to pray for a moment or whatever. And he was just so in tune, and like sometimes, and it was like terrifying too, like he would actually call on students, say, hey, could you lead this for a second, or could you sing this part for me. And you knew it was an honor. It wasn't like this, okay, you're in trouble, you got to sing, but it
Mm.
was like this honor. I don't know. He led with such like humility and gentleness, but also strength. And so, yeah, I'll never forget that. And he was just like available. I forget what I needed to do. I don't remember the instance, but I was already graduated, but I called him up because I said, Mr. Cliff, like I need your help, like, with this piece. I wish I remember what it was, but I need your help with this piece. Would you be willing to just like look it over as I'm conducting this to make sure I've got this right? And he said, yeah, come on over on a Saturday morning. And I remember his wife was there playing the piano, and I was direct. It was just, that's where you feel really poured into, is those extra moments too, where you can tell, okay, he really cares, you know? So that stands out to me, just like a servant minded leader.
You had um a lot of this when doing these interviews. I've talking to a few people, and um, one of the things that kind of really stands out, which is new, is that not fairly new, but it's really new because it's consistently from the time from now. I mean, it's pretty much almost, it seems like the entire story is that it's very spiritual journey. Like
Mm.
it feels like a lot of times we talk about things, right? Or we talk about things that are not as important, superficial in a way,
Mm.
right? But it seems like a lot of the people you had around you were very like, we call IQ, EQ, and I call it something like SQ. Like they're
Oh, yeah,
spiritual type of, like they're in. You mentioned in tune, and
mm-hmm.
the amount of mentorship that you had, and the amount of people that you were able to interact with who kept you on the right path. It's easy, and I mean, especially in Oregon and places
Yeah.
in California, to just kind of slip into this, the darkness per se, we can say,
Mm-hmm.
and for
Yeah.
lack of a better term. But man, it seems like God was really, like, really helped pave a way for helping you get closer to the kind of the best version of you. I mean,
Yeah.
obviously everyone kind of, we're not all perfect, but
Totally.
man, you had, I mean, it seems like really cool people you were surrounded by all throughout, being in a whole new state by yourself, and being able to just have these resources and people like just saying, hey, yeah, no, we'll guide you here. It's
Yeah.
it's really cool to hear, you know, and yeah. So I'm curious about that.
Yeah.
What type of people do you keep in your circle? Learning from your childhood. Kind of now you mentioned that, hey, you graduated college and you still had these people you can interact with. How did you kind of like keep the right clique? Was it just making sure that you were attending church and that was making sure you had those connections and you could stay close to close to the fire?
Yeah.
What was it for that helped you have such great just people to connect with and lean on and to be poured into for.
Yeah. That's a great question. I mean, for one, I am so deeply grateful, and I hope through this, I'm not painting a picture that, my life has just been so, you know what I mean? Like there's been so many ups and downs
Yeah, of
and,
course. Yeah.
and stuff. But I think through that, I've always been, when I see someone living like a wise life or just like has, an on fire relationship with God, I'm drawn to them. And I always love to ask them questions and like get to know them. I don't know. And I think there's like a verse in scripture that says, he who walks with the wise will be wise. I might be paraphrasing that a little bit, but I think there's something to that. Like if you're wanting to grow, like surround yourself, seek out, pray for those people that can be in your life to keep you accountable, to cheer you on, to say the hard things like, hey, I see this in your life. This is really not helping you. Like, I encourage you to look at this and try something different, Mentorship is huge, and yeah, even now, like my husband and I are kind of being mentored by, some people new in our lives. And it's just been, I think, I heard this phrase that I thought it was so good, that in life, aim to be mentored by someone and to be mentoring someone. And that really gives you a good balance, because then you're almost this conduit, right? Like you're being poured into, but then you're pouring out, to someone else. There's always someone that needs to hear the nitty gritty of your life, and the beauty and the hard stuff. Yeah, I hope that makes sense. But
No,
yeah,
no.
I think it's so important, especially in this day and age where we can easily look to social media. And I do the same thing where I'm like, oh, I love listening to that guy or this lady or whatever. And I think that's so good. But those people in the flesh that you can see and they know you, like to be known and to be cheered on, poured into, I think that there's such a need for that.
Yeah, no, I would 100% agree. So I call this chapter 2.
Okay.
Okay. Kind of finished chapter 1. But now we're kind of moving on to chapter 2. Anything looking back from graduating college, and obviously I'm trying to get your timeline right. It seems like you got married either senior year or after college. Am I right here?
Right after college, 3
Okay.
weeks.
Okay.
My parents said I had to finish college.
So, so anything looking back on that part of your life, that you like to mention, I guess the way I like to phrase the question is that like you're looking at yourself at that time, right? And just looking back and saying, hey, you don't know what your next chapter is going to look like, right? Because you don't know, right? You're about to graduate, right? You're just about to be in like this place where you're like super excited, like, oh, yay, I'm about to get married, So can you give me a little bit more of like what that kind of side, what would it be like, man, this is where you're at, kind of where your mindset's at, and then even now, like how do you look upon that part of your life, and how do you feel about that?
Yeah. I think it was a big foundation, just a really big foundation. My parents really poured into my brother and I, and they're big prayer warriors too, which I think is a huge part of it. So yeah, I think I look back and I just see it as a foundation, Yeah.
Good. So got married. super excited. Um, we kind of didn't really go deep into your relationship with your spouse. Um, yeah, what is how does how do you feel like your dynamic was? And what do you kind of like love most about your relationship? Do you feel like that makes you guys special?
Yeah. Well, I love our story because we both came to it wanting to be friends first, you
Mm,
know? I think we really believe that like friendship is the basis of, a healthy marriage. But it's funny, and I'll share it. I'm sure my husband doesn't mind, but it's like the third time we were hanging out, and it was very like we barely like we had three times that we saw each other, just little snippets, right?
right.
And he stopped by my mod, which was the sophomore area of housing, and I think he was actually coming to say hi to me and then like my roommate too or something like that. But he was going to chapel and I was like, "Yeah, I'm going to chapel too." And he's like, "Well, you want to go together?" So we did. And when we were sitting in chapel, he said like literally like he was sitting next to me and he's like never heard like God really speak to him like clearly, but he said he said that God said, "This is the woman you're going to marry."
Holy cow, it worked, Sarah. Absolutely worked. I'm not gonna lie, it actually worked. I'm so sorry.
No,
I
you're
can't
fine.
believe it. Oh no, continue.
Yeah, and he felt like God said, this is the woman you're gonna marry." And it freaked him out because he was just like, "I barely know this lady." And he's like, "Okay, just chill out, you know?" Anyway, and he told his best friend at the time, just saying, like, "This is what I felt like God said. I'm just gonna tell you now, so I don't keep it to myself and say, 'See, God told me,' or whatever." But yeah, it was just a formative moment for him. And for us, but we just really became just really good friends.
Mm,
And I think the thing we both come to it from like a deep sense of commitment, to each other. And I love it because he's got such a great sense of humor and a charisma about him that I mean I loved from day one, that I can get pretty serious sometimes.
mm.
And so yeah, he gets me out of that often, which is good. But we're it's so funny. We're so opposite in so many ways, but it works so well,
Yeah,
Yeah, and yeah, it's just been I mean, just ups and downs and learning how to be parents together. I mean, it's
yeah,
just I'm so deeply grateful, and he is such a man of character that I've come to deeply been able to lean on, in moments of just tough stuff.
yeah.
So, yeah.
Yo, yeah. Um, I met him.
Yeah.
Man, like I feel it. You know, I
Mm,
think it's cool to be around individuals and you feel this warmth, right?
mm,
Of kind of like what a true man character feels like. You know, there's some people that you interact with, but you can tell like there's something about them that I think I should keep my distance. But man, there's something that you can feel like that attracts. You know,
yeah.
and that sense of like, yo, I feel like I can talk to you. I don't even
Mm,
know you, but I feel
yeah.
like I can talk to you. You know, and that's cool. That even at early in your relationship, you can tell like he can help you in these areas where you're not, great at. He could pull you out. Hey, it's all good. Let's
Yeah.
have fun. You know, and it's kind of that's really cool, that dynamic that you guys have.
Yeah.
So married, and you still working three jobs, or is it or like?
No. Well, still the one. I was working at Starbucks at the time.
Hey, get
So,
excited.